Hey guys. So I'm just going to document where I'm at with my health for my own tracking and also because people ask and it's a lot to say. I can give people abbreviated responses, but as one family member said, they don't do great with the cryptic texting responses. So, and then long winded responses take a lot of time, and I don't even know that they're even that effective either. So I'm just going to do this. So basically, I think most of my people, subscribers, are family and friends. And you probably know I've had this rectal inflammation that I've been dealing with. And right now, it's actually like there's not a whole lot of blood going on, but I am still dealing with pain. Part of that is because haven't been using anything for pain because I had a little I don't want to say scare, but I'd say a pregnancy potential surprise that obviously would have some complications. Um, so I just stopped taking I stopped taking anything for pain because of that. So it acts up at night. I don't know why, but I noticed like even when the kids get colds and stuff, sometimes they seem fine during the day and then at night nobody can sleep and they run fevers and whatever. So I'm not exactly sure, but also because like in the past when I would have um, little battles, I would have like feel like I would be fighting a rectal prolapse. I never actually saw evidence, but I could feel it. And this might sound a bit gross, but once I would pass whatever it is you're passing, I would actually just take my fingers and like push up against the side, like right beside my anus, like and like manually like hold it up so that nothing could come out. And that was when I was attached. I would have that, and so I've been dealing with that too. It's because you're straining and you're going to the bathroom more than you should. It's you know, um, oh, the family's back inside, so you might hear a lot of background noise now. But um, anyway, so now that I'm detached, I think a prolapse is probably more likely. So a prolapse is basically like your rectum, like accordioning out. So it would just pop out. If you type it in, the images aren't great, but um, I think that's where the pain's coming from. I think like obviously when I'm bleeding more, whether that's ulceration exactly or just inflammation, that is painful in and of itself. But I also think I'm just dealing with like this throbbing kind of like just hi. Anyways, so yeah. Um okay, so that's kind of where I'm at. Now I'm supposed to get a CAT scan this week with contrast because what I thought was diastasis recti, because underneath my stoma there's like you can see when I was coughing like a winter ago, I actually saw like I felt the zipper, the unzip and this hernia underneath my stoma, and so that's on top of like my whole stomach is already like a bulge, and I thought that was from I had a bit of diastasis recti from being pregnant, but now it's like exacerbated since the surgery, very much so. And because I dealt with the ascites after the surgery, that was like a lot of pressure because of my liver complication pushing out. So that might have also created this exacerbated situation. But, anyways, when I saw the surgeon some time ago, he said, no, that's like your whole abdominal wall is a hernia. So that's what I'm supposed to go to be getting a CAT scan to check. But because the contrast is, people have reactions to this contrast, and I'm in like, IBD groups and stuff, and people have reactions. And because on January 4th, so that, we're mid December now, January 4th, I'm supposed to have a colonoscopy. I don't want to have a reaction and then in 2 weeks go for a colonoscopy. So, and also, it's out, like I go, I drive a couple hours to the hospital. So then they have to put an IV in. So if I can, I'm going to try to make the CAT scan the afternoon after my colonoscopy, which is in the morning, on January 4th. So I'm going to try to rearrange that. Anyway, so soon I will be talking to my GI on January 4th, or my internal specialist. I like that she's actually an internal specialist, not a GI, because she's kind of got like a broader perspective of how the body isn't just like how one system of your body affects another, right? So anyway, when I go in, the thing is I do some, when you disrupt the rectum gut access, nobody's going to say you got rid of IBD, because doctors believe, that's, you'll never get rid of it. You could go into remission, but it could always come back, because it's basically like, how I would say I agree with that is like, if you injure your knee, sort of, it's like you could heal it, but then it's like a weak spot, right? So your body's learned a pathway, right? And so, yeah. But when you disrupt that rectum gut access, they do know that lots of times people go into remission, like that's enough to make you go into remission, and that people can be they'll be a lot more stable for whatever reason when they have an ostomy rather than when they're hooked up. The reason why I'm not looking like this is because I don't want a neck crank, by the way. But so part of me thinks if we were to remove the rectum, because I'm stable without medical therapies, like staying on drugs, that and all the side effects and complications from that seems actually like not a terrible option for me. But there's also all sorts of like unknown situations, like having your rectum removed. It can impair your urinary function, and they can't really track it with females the same way they can with men, obviously, but it can impair your sexual function. And she said that's a rough estimate, the surgeon I talked to from Vancouver, but she said she didn't even know if their statistics are right, because they don't have any like real measurable ways of tracking. But she said like anywhere from like 20 to 60%, like, so it's not even really like low chances. And then it's one of the hardest surgeries to heal, apparently. It's like, you could kind of see where it's located. It's kind of just hard to heal it. Some people end up with open wounds for a long time, which obviously makes you more susceptible to infections and stuff. Your organs can shift, so sometimes people have like kind of like pooling and stuff in their feminine areas that they have to like drain with like siphon it out with a straw or something. I don't know. Anyway, so there's like risk of complications, right, from having that done. But I do feel like it could keep me off of like the medical therapy wheel, except that I will then always be on the medical equipment wheel, because I will always need very expensive medical equipment, ostomy equipment, right? So that in a way isn't like, there's things about it that, on top of which, if they decide to fix my, like, have an abdominal reconstruction, it's more complicated. They consider it a dirty surgery if you have a stoma, because your colon is open where there's a lot of bacteria. And the surgeon in Vancouver said the doctors have a lot of disagreement, or discussion, I think was the word she used, about which meshes to use and stuff. So I think it's very much like a developing surgery in terms of like the best procedures to do an abdominal reconstruction with a stoma. So if I were to get reattached, and then let that settle, and then have an abdominal reconstruction, that's considered a clean surgery and much lower risk and stuff. So it sounds, like, let's just get reattached, right? Well, now here's the thing with the reattachment. They won't reattach me until the rectal inflammation is gone, which is kind of a bummer, because I didn't really have this rectal inflammation since my surgery, so I could have been reattached at different times, right, throughout the last couple of years. But we were trying to heal my liver naturally to avoid a shunt. So anyway, they're probably going to want to use a medical therapy, which the surgeon from Vancouver did say, like, well, it's not our practice to remove a rectum until we've exhausted all the medical therapies. But here's the problem with my medical therapy options. Now, I've found like maybe some other options that I'm trying to understand, but the main option that has been the go-to for the doctors bringing up is obviously the biologics. And I'm going to be having a heart-to-heart with my last GI. I did not feel like I could talk to, I could barely get through like basic like when I had ascites, he told me I was probably swallowing air. So I didn't have a very, I couldn't get very far in a conversation with him, it felt like. But this GI, I think that there's a lot of hope. So that we could have a really good conversation. So I'm hoping to have a heart-to-heart with her on January 4th and explain to her my conscience, because they need living cells to make these biologics, and a lot of them are made in embryonic cell lines. And the ones that aren't made in embryonic cell lines, like Remicades, one of the oldest one, it's made in something from a mouse. I'm guessing the ovaries, because they use the Chinese hamster ovary for pretty much the remaining biologics. Chinese hamster ovary. Now, embryonic for me is a severe conflict for me. And I think, here's the thing. When it comes to conscience, I don't even, there's the thought that these things are actually being, used in our foods and we're consuming them anyway, right? And if I don't know that, that's one thing. But when you do know something, and then people, sometimes there's the, will God judge you for some lesser evil if, whatever. And for me, I'm not going to say I'm going to stand in judgment for everybody, because I'm going to let God do that. But if nobody ever stands up for what's right and kind of chucks themselves in the spoke of the wheel and stops the system and resists the system, then that's what pushes these unethical medical therapies forward. And so I have a really huge issue. And when it comes to if it got down to life or death, which I was life or death a couple times for me, and I chose no. And these were the things that were inside my heart. So, yeah, and then you could say, well, you got 6 kids back home, whatever, but God's in charge and doing things that are unethical. Can't do it. So, the second thing is the Chinese hamster ovary. It doesn't seem as big of a deal, but I know that this body is God's temple. And, there's, verses that says, he who destroys his temple, him will I destroy, right? There's, the whole name of the game was, of the dark side, is to defile the temple, right? And so, even the Chinese hamster ovary is very concerning to me. And I did find out that they can grow them in yeast and bacteria. I think it's Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So now I couldn't find any that I could be absolutely sure that use those two, but there were 2 that I found that might. Now, a lot of times when you're looking up things online, they'll say things like that it's undisclosed information, it's a proprietary blend. And so that makes me very highly suspicious, but they'll say contact the manufacturer or whatever. So when I was looking up these 2, now these 2 that I found, they're actually not biologics. There's another classification of drugs called Janus kinase inhibitors, JAK inhibitors. And basically a biologic, this is my understanding, I'm not a doctor, but from what I have researched, is your immune system is made up of something called cytokines and interleukin, let's say interleukin 6, interleukin 10, interleukin 15, all these interleukins. And biologics, they target certain interleukins, so different biologics would target different interleukins, even though all of them have an affinity for the TNF alpha, tumor necrosis factor, and that's, I believe that the tumor necrosis factor is it's the part of your immune system that regulates, like everybody has cancer cells, and it's the part of your immune system that like fights the cancer cells or keeps them in homeostasis or whatever. And so it's not so much that biologics give you cancer, but it's that they inhibit your body from stopping cancer cells from replicating, is my understanding. So, and I do have, like, we'll get to that guy in a minute, but so like long-term thinking, like you're getting an immediate result, but then there's like, and they say it's low, but I know for me in this, like just in this, IBD groups, a lot of people that use the drugs, just in my own personal experience, have cancer. So I'm like, like when I was getting my liver biopsy, my first liver biopsy, oh, you have a 1 in 1,000 chance of bleeding. Well, what do you know? I'm that 1 in 1,000, right? So sometimes, to be honest, I don't trust the numbers. I think doctors believe what they're told, but it doesn't seem to add up to me, these numbers. And I remember when I studied cancer and the Cancer Institute and stuff, and what they called rubber numbers. And there's this example of rubber numbers where, like, if you have remission from cancer for 5 years, they consider you cured. Even if it comes back in the 6th year, they count you as a cured patient from cancer. And so rather than saying, like, let's say that, let's say there was, you go from, let's say they went from 1 person cured to 2 people cured by their treatment, rather than saying we went from 1% success rate to 2% success rate, they could say we had a 50 or 100% increase in success rates with our cancer treatment. Right? So rubber numbers, like, I just, like, when people say things, there can be an illusion, and I just don't, the numbers that are thrown at me sometimes, I'm like, doesn't mean much to me. So now, okay, so back to these JAK inhibitors. So basically, the biologics shut off these different interleukins, and actually there is a test in the States it's by CytoDX, but it's because it's not FDA approved, or maybe it is in the States, but up in Canada it's for sure not, where they can actually test your cytokine panel, and they can figure out which biologic they should use to target your specific inflammatory response. But that's not what they do, so it kind of seems like a bit of a Russian roulette game where they just gas and hope you don't react, because some people do react to these drugs. They're like a higher risk class drug, and then that one didn't work, we'll try this one, or you build an antibody. Anyways, so those ones are shutting off the parts of your immune system. The JAK inhibitors, what I understand is those parts of your immune system, those cytokines, they send a response through something called something probably to do with the Janus kinase. But anyways, they're like little communicators, and what this does is it sends, the drug comes in, and it basically, like, I think it's a protein that they send in that grabs them, the communicators, and silences them. I think it's kind of like if you have a key and you put some tape around the end or something, right? Binds to them. So I think that one, unless they know how to, unless there's different kinds and they're targeting certain kinds, it seems a bit more of like a blanket approach, because I think it goes for all the communicators. But I don't know if that's quite accurate, but it seems like it in my mind. So I know a lot of people are saying these things are like, have called them like magic or miracle drug, and I think probably if it's just shutting off all communication, then that would definitely seem that way initially. But obviously, anytime you're messing with your immune system, you're gonna have like increased chances of picking up infections and not being able to. So it's like it's not the condition itself, but it's your lack of ability to regulate and ward off other conditions, right, that come your way. So now you have other things, right? Um, so these JAK inhibitors, I found two. These are the two that I found that may not use the embryonic or Chinese hamster ovary or whatever cell lines. One is called Rinvoq and one's called Xeljanz. Those are the brand names. And the Rinvoq, I don't think it's in Canada, but the Xeljanz looks like it is. So now maybe I could learn something new because the internet sometimes has like old information, right? So I'm going to ask my GI doctor if she knows, right? Or she can talk to her colleagues or the manufacturers and try to find one of these, right? And they don't actually mess with your DNA. They impair your immune system, but if I knew they were clean, then I would probably do that, honestly, to, get hooked back up and have my abdominal wall rebuilt. So I'm going to pursue that. I also found another class of drugs that they use, but I think it's a little bit more archaic to them. I don't think they use it as much, or maybe they use it like secondary because it's not the drug that's been brought up to me, but what are they called? Anti-metabolites. So there's like Umarin, 6MP. I don't remember the other names, but these ones are basically what I like about these ones, another thing about the JAK inhibitors, by the way, is that you just take them orally, so you don't have to go into the hospital for like a loading dose. So their ease of use is like you can just do it from home. So people like that about the JAK inhibitors over the biologics. These ones, I think they're oral too, but 6MP and the Marin and stuff, but I like that they're not grown in those live cell lines, so they're clean. But the part I'm not sure I'm understanding properly is I think that how they work is they're DNA disruptors. So they actually go in and whatever your body's response is, they like basically like throw a wrench in it and the body like I don't know. I was trying to understand it, but it looks like they're DNA disruptors. So I don't know if that's actually changing your DNA, because that doesn't sound good or acceptable, or if they're like, I don't know what they mean by DNA disrupting. And the other thing about it is the few people that I have built friendships with online, I had 4 people. I've only had 4 responses, like personal responses on this, and all 4 were like flat out no. One had a serious reaction. One told me like just basically, she didn't tell me why, but she just told me like she would not use those. And the other 2 did get the cancer. And one of them had the cancer within 2 years. And it's it's a lymphatic cancer. And so it's a narrow cancer, so when you get it that it's caused from the drug, because it's the cancer the drug causes. So like for me to get on it, get rid of the inflammation, get reversed, stabilize my gut, then get the next surgery to rebuild my abdominal wall, and then recover from that, I mean, that's probably going to take 2 years. And all the while, like, I'm not at my optimal while those things are happening, right? Because you're trying to heal, and now I have an impaired DNA response. I don't know. I don't know. I like that they're clean, and if they're oral, that's cool. But I need to understand the anti-metabolites better. I don't know if there's other drugs. Those are just the only ones I can find. So that's my problem, is I'm having a crisis of conscience with their medical therapies. And so I'm going to have a heart-to-heart on January 4th and try to figure that out. Otherwise, I'm actually going to ask to bypass their usual protocols and just take my rectum out and move on with life here. On top of which, I also just need to deal with my liver. So the liver situation is that they're going to go back through my transjugular down into my liver. Probably it's supposed to happen in January. I just don't have the appointment booked. Check the pressure gradient, and if it hasn't gone away, then they want to put a shunt in, and it would have to be a second procedure because they need 2 of their radiologists to do it. And believe it or not, it seems like not that big of a deal, but it's actually like a 4 to 6 hour surgery. They do bring it down through the transjugular, but it's not like a stent where they just bring it through your blood vessel and like let it pop open. They have to place it in liver tissue, so it has to be placed and a shunt. So it's called a TIPS procedure. The good news is that they have excellent outcomes. It's a very well done, a very often well received treatment, even in people who have very like shoddy livers. And my liver, everything about my liver, they couldn't even find the problem. It took us a long time to find the problem because everything about my liver looks good, except that for some reason I was having ascites, and they found the pressure problem. So it's the small blood vessels that are been damaged, they've been injured, and so they need to increase the blood flow in my liver, which will stop blood clots, and nobody wants to do surgery on me if I'm a high risk for blood clots, right? So the idea is in January to check that and maybe have a shunt placed if necessary. To be honest, I kind of think it's still there because I can't say for sure, like maybe I just get bloated from eating certain things, but as the day wears on, toward the end of the day, I still feel this pressure in my abdomen, and that's what I had, like, but more severely with the ascites. So kind of feel like it might still be there. I hope it's not, and I don't feel like my thoughts on the matter could, like, people, oh, there's power in the mind. I do think there's power in the mind, but my mind is not an anxious mind. I'm not worried about death. I'm not worried about challenges, and I don't think that my mind is bearing on it being what it is. I don't think I'm God. I don't think I can turn my hairs gray or black or white or red. So I just think that it will be what it is, and it is in God's hands, and I'm trusting. So we'll see how that all goes. That's where I'm at. And yeah, so I guess number 1 is the liver will be dealt with. Number 2, the CAT scan will give us results to exactly what the surgeons will be dealing with. Number 3 is hopefully we can find a medical therapy that I'm okay with temporarily. You know, hopefully I could get off it at some point would be my goal. And to kind of get me over the hump. And then if not, removing, hey, I'm just making a video. Anyways, that's fine. Anyways, that's it. Yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I love you all, and if anybody's out there and wants to do anything for me, the number 1 thing I care about is prayer. Just praying for me, just that, you know, obviously that my body heals and that I come through it fine. God's been so good to me in giving me strength, like mental strength, spiritual strength, and even like just physical strength. Like I'm happy. Like I don't feel sorry for myself, and I have a good life. But I think also just strengthening my kids and my husband, because it and even just like the ripple effect, right? Everybody affects everybody. So yeah, just giving grace to everybody, the doctors. Yeah, I appreciate prayers more than anything. So yeah. Okay, love you guys. Bye.